Hello and welcome to another edition of the program Total Woman on AD4 TV Radio. My name is Mute Olori. A study by the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development and the United Nations Population Fund in Nigeria, with support from the Norwegian government, found out that 28% of Nigerian women aged between 25 and 29 have experienced some form of physical violence since the age 15. This study also found out that 15% of women experienced physical violence within the 12 months that the survey was carried out. According to the report, the level of exposure to the risk of violence varied based on marital status, and 44% of divorced, separated, or widowed women reported experiencing violence since age 15, while 25% of the married women or those living with their spouses have experienced one form of violence or the other through that same period. The most common act of violence against women in Nigeria include sexual harassment, physical violence, harmful traditional practices, emotional and psychological violence, not to mention socio-economic violence and violence against non-combatant women in conflict situations. So today on the program Total Woman, we're being joined by a women's rights advocate, filmmaker, and co-founder of the Dorothy Njemanze Foundation. Please join me to welcome Dorothy Njemanze. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on the program. And I want to say you're doing an amazing job.
Happy to know that a little impact, a little input noticed. Thank you.
It is indeed making a lot of impact. If every one of us would put a drop and just a little voice, I think we'll make tremendous progress when it comes to women issues in Nigeria. But I'd like to know, why did you found that foundation?
Wow. Okay, so the Dorothy Njemanze Foundation, there was a time we needed a legal platform that can sue and be sued. And that was when we were questioning the random abductions and gross violation of women in Abuja by the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, the Nigerian Police, the Nigerian Army, and so many other organizations at the time. We were documenting stories of victims, and we were taking legal actions and engaging, we were engaging the authorities at different levels on our findings. And so we needed a platform, a legal platform, that can sue and be sued. We eventually ended up heading to the ECOWAS courts, challenging the abductions. Dorothy Njemanze, not the foundation then, happened to be the lead plaintiff. And we ended up getting the landmark judgment where the Maputo Protocol was cited in a judgment for the first time ever.
I mean, that experience was a win for everyone.
It was a win for everyone, but while it was a win for everyone, it's a win that didn't come easy. I lost everything so many times over. I lost my accommodation so many times over. People cut off from me. A lot of people in the entertainment industry, cut off from me. I was decast from a lot of productions because I was labeled enemy of the government. But all I was doing was pointing out human rights violations and demanding for justice for the human beings that were not properly treated, especially considering the fact that Nigeria says we are human rights friendly. So why should any human rights be violated in Nigeria, and why should we be okay with the violation of any human right? Everything that happens right now in Nigeria is what we have permitted. Everything that has become trendy is what we have permitted. And so as a people, if we permit violations, then violations become trendy. And that's one of the strong drives for me. As a child, from childhood, I've been exposed to different kinds of violence, sexual and all sorts of gender-based violence, yes.
And the thing is that when you expect the people who are supposed to protect the citizens are the one perpetrating this violence against its own people. So you begin to wonder, where would justice come for the common man?
It's easy to explain why many perpetrators are usually close to the victims in one way or the other, whether it's the government of a people violating a people. When I say government, I'm not referring to any particular one. Let me say the people in power violating the people who they're ruling, or whoever it is. Proximity to perpetrate to the vulnerable, proximity to those it's easy to exploit is one thing that is an enabling factor. Then a degree of confidence is built, and most violations are a product of broken trusts. So a degree of confidence and trust is built between the perpetrator and the person who is violated eventually. Then broken trust comes in. And then that's why you hear, oh, when we married, when we were dating, he was not violent. But after the trust level has been established, next thing, he gets violent. And she keeps on hoping, oh, one day he will go back to how he was, and 20-something years after, he hasn't gone back. Yes.
Let's talk about your story. I remember sometime you said you've been violated about 15 times.
Way over. 15 is what?
15
Way over. When it comes to violated, I want to believe we're talking rape specifically. I've been raped way over 20 times in my life. Way, way, way over. Why do I use the word 20 most of the time? The figure 20. Because it's a significant figure. And at some point, I was in a place where the owner of the place permitted me to be there. But the people who were there would call their friends and go, hey, come around, let me give you a good time. And then the good time they want to give their friend is offer me. Yeah? And I needed accommodation at the time. The time I felt I wanted to leave the place and I, slept on the streets, somebody approached me while I was on the streets. And so I decided, okay, it makes more sense to be in a place that if anything went wrong, at least I'll be able to point hand to somewhere. First time I was raped, I was 8 years old. In retrospect now, when I was a lot younger, there was also something that happened that I usually don't count as sexual harassment, but it wasn't rape, yeah? And it was from a female. Nonetheless, now, these things that happened to me have helped me, how best do I put this? So, while I was growing, I was angry about everything. But from watching the Oprah Winfrey Show, for instance, I was able to label my emotions. So I knew which one was disappointment as against anger, which I was interpreting everything to be. I knew which one was, the strongest of the emotions were anger and disappointment for me. And so now I live my life trying to do for others what the Oprah Winfrey Show did for me.
Helping you to identify your emotions.
Label your emotions and empower you enough to make better informed decisions. So my thoughts are along the line of, if anything happens to me and it is that malam on the road that sells something down the street, that his actions or inactions can save me or, lead to my death, is he empowered enough to take the appropriate decision for my good? If he's empowered enough to take the appropriate decision for my good, it means all the children on the street are safe. It means all the women on the street are safe. By extension, every city where women are safe is a city safe enough for men.
Exactly.
So, building capacity of people to understand that women, children, persons with disabilities are emotional beings with human rights is what I'll do for the rest of my life.
I can see that you're coming from a place of a lot of experience, personal experience. Yes. Now, why were you incapacitated at that time? Because you could have mentioned to someone, you could have gone to the authority, you see that you had no options.
So,
and how knowledgeable, wise were you at that time when these things happened?
At 8 years old, So let's start from when I was 4 years old. There's this finger of mine, yeah? You can see the finger. I had this accident when I was 4 years old, and I was called Ben finger. I was called 9.5 fingers. So by the time rape happened, I didn't know that it was okay for me to open up about it, because what would I be called next? And now I can link it to the fear of stigmatization. And I tell people that stigmatization is a figment of our imagination. Describe stigma. What does it have? Does it have tails? Does it have a head? Does it have horns? It's a figment of your creation. And so now that I know that for real, I now try to make more people understand that's the reality of its manifestation. So I also know that with children, for instance, that the child loves you doesn't mean that you're the first person that the child is going to feel like speaking to if anything happens. Some children warm up to their Sunday school teacher, one teacher in the school, one particular auntie, somebody else, but whoever it is, how informed is the person to take the best decision in the interest of the child, for instance. So for me, I didn't trust enough to talk about those violations. I mean, when this one happened, I knew how it was. And so talking about those ones was a total no-no for me. Then it affected a lot of things, including my confidence level. I mean, I've always been the life of wherever I am. Mm-hmm. But my grandmother then would say that she was concerned about me because I make everybody laugh. And then I recline to one corner and I am all alone and seemingly sad. And my grandmother was really very bothered about that. It made her very uncomfortable. But now in retrospect, I see a lot of truth in what she said. It affected my confidence a lot. I'm very creative. I'm an extrovert. I love to communicate. But opening up to people about things that affect me, I don't like being judged. I don't like being taunted. And I found out that I fashioned my life to cushion the possible effects of any such thing. So I won't even expose myself, let alone get to the point of dealing with the consequences of that. But now, a lot of things have changed though, because now, sometimes shame we don't have, shameless we don't have, we just have life and we live our life and we refuse for anybody to deny us of our human rights. And I'm happy to be that way. I would say that everything that happened to me is a good problem. Because, when you tell people it's okay, don't cry, endure, follow through with a legal process, because this is what you will get. It's different from when you've experienced it and you can tell them, I've experienced it. I understand your pain. I know this is this. I can prepare your mind for what you're going to meet next. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But
I know you're handling a case about 3 years. The case is about 3 years now, about 2 children that were abused.
Yes.
By the landlord.
Yes, they were raped by their landlord.
Raped. And the father is like, I want to see the end of this. I mean, yes. I'm taking it for the fact that you talked about the legal, yes. Taking legal and allowing the law to take its course. Did you have such kind of support? Okay, let me put it this way. Are you pursuing this course because you did not have that kind of experience?
Well, there were times that there were things I wished I had better in some situations. Yes, I did wish I had better in some situations. And so my answer would be yes. Nonetheless, if you now think about to what extent people were empowered enough to understand the implications of their words, that's why now I do everything to break down messaging so that more people understand better the gravity of their actions or inactions. So I see somebody who is willing to support, but while you're willing to support, you're telling somebody, but it was your fault you went there. If you listen to me, those kind of things would not have happened. If you didn't seem so cheap in the first instance, Nobody will be willing to take pictures of your vagina. Things like that. And so it means you're already condemning the person, but you're hoping that the person you are condemning will open up to you on more things. Is it so that you continue condemning the person? So even as human beings, when we have messed up, we know we have messed up. So many times we just want people to help us get back on our feet and not to put us down more. Or not to use, when you mess up, let's assume your messing up is like you're a nail that has been driven into wood. We want people to act like a pincer and pull us out, right? And not to continue hitting us in. That's it. But a lot of times our actions or inactions are like, the mattock or whatever, and keep hitting on the nail and pushing right back in there. And so, trying to help people understand better the implications or the gravities of their actions or inactions is what I'll do for the rest of my life. A lot of people have failed me. A lot of people who I totally believed in really, I don't know how best to put it. But remember, that's why I said your child, you may not be your child's go-to person. Nonetheless, whether or not you're your child's go-to person, it's important to say that if your child is unable to tell you the most stupid things, you're a failure as a parent. Whatever it is, the child should be able to say, because look at child sexual abuse, for instance. One of the major entry points for child sexual abuse is, what's smelling here? Open your leg, let me see if it is from in between your leg that thing is smelling. And the child does what? Opens the leg. Next thing, 1 thing, do 2 things, 3 things, get accident join. So teaching children that these are the names of your body parts, that's the first thing. And then if anybody touches this part of your body, mention it. But somebody touches that part of the child's body and you're like, that's why they'll keep on touching your body. You will not sit well as a girl. Why won't everybody want to?
Shut the child at that.
Exactly. So implications of actions or inactions, I would live the rest of my life linking lifestyle to human rights. Your mode of dressing affects human rights. Somebody comes and says, her dress was too short, that was why I spanked her buttocks. Excuse me, when we are on the road, we just see men whip out penises. How many of us just go and grab the thing? So we've trained women to restrain themselves, but we make excuses when men do not. Every human being has potentials for self-control. In the event they make excuses for it, I think the prisons should also not be making excuses for receiving these people. I advise that people who have money for investment should do things like build private prison, because there are so many people who need to be in prisons that are not in prison.
Just like this man that we're looking for now.
Oh, yes.
The case of
yes.
I'll take a short break. When I come back, we'll talk a bit about it and then look at what women should begin to do and what the government also needs to do for us as women to create a safe space for women to thrive. I'll take a short break. I'll be right back. It's still Total Woman on 84 TV Radio. Don't go away. I am a total woman. All right, you're welcome back. It's still Total Woman, and here we're talking about all forms of abuse against women. If it's home abuse, marital abuse, there's so many against women. But let's look at the 2017 case. That was a landmark case. You taking an issue to ECOWAS, and then such proclamation, victory on your side. How far have you gone with that case? Or should I say, how did you feel? Or what's your experiences after that?
Okay, so the court judgment came out in October 2017. We approached the ECOWAS court in 2014. In 2011, there were some other cases that we took to court in Nigeria. You won't believe we're in 2020 now, and those cases are still in court. Now, despite the fact we had the court judgment in 2017, the landmark court judgment, Nigeria has not honored the court judgments. One of the things that Nigeria has not done right with the court judgment was the fact that there were still the Abuja raids in 2019, where women were violated again. And of course, the women said that pure water sachets were used to rape them. And I reported it. And instead of the police to investigate the police, I was under investigation. And so these are not fair. These are not right. Morality policing of women can never replace their constitutionally guaranteed rights. And this is what we've been talking about. A very personal thing the Nigerian government has not done right is a token was awarded to us compared to what I lost. 6 million naira that the ECOWAS court awarded us is small, but it will honestly help to start life again. It would help. This is the 3rd year, and we've not gotten that up till now. There's still a lot of problem when rent needs to be paid. Over 80% of what I get goes into running the Dorothy Njemaze Foundation. Way over 80%. Sometimes it's 130% because I'm owing in many ways. I sell off whatever is left so many times to be able to help people navigate the justice systems. And it's really very hurtful. So, and this brings us back to what is actually in place for people who suffer, abuse, women and girls who suffer abuse in Nigeria. From the medicals to the legals to the entire judicial process to whatever support comes in real time. So if I need a place to stay, where do I stay? Shelters most of the time are short-term, places. A few months ago, there was a case of the commissioner in Kogi State that beat up and raped a lady, and she talked about what happened to her. She was filmed nude in the presence of her child,
I remember the case, and I remember organization like Action Aid and some other people
came on that.
Came on the case.
So many months after, while people are asking what has happened on the case, who is asking what is happening with the victim? She's been attacked several times, her family has been attacked several times, and she needs support. The provision for shelter is usually short, but where is she supposed to stay? She lost everything, completely everything. So what realistically is available to victims? Is there any kind of funding that they can lean on? If they need a room, for instance, to move to, 1 year rent, who foots the bill? The referral pathways are not clearly defined. And if it's clearly defined, it means that you identify all the problems and then there'll be solutions for each problem. If a woman needs to move with her children, if one room is what you want to give victims and a woman needs to move with her 8 children, it means she moves with her 8 children to the 1 room.
Okay. I know the sexual harassment bill that was passed by the federal government. Apart from persecuting the offender, what other provisions do they have to take care of the victim in that law?
Victim is the one that is mostly forgotten. A lot of people want to see punishment for the offender, but it's important to remind people that the victim is a human being. We have a lot focusing on punishing the offender, but how about something for the victim? Victims need different things, psychosocial support to different extents. But how can we realistically help victims? It's not, there really is nothing. We need to have provisions for victims, because what does it mean? It means with them that we remember that victims are human beings, are emotional beings with human rights, who are broken and need help, to function as they should.
This is really sad. Listening to you talk about this. Anyway.
I'll tell you, right now we have so many pregnant children. Currently in Abuja, the Social Development Secretariat does not accommodate pregnant women in the shelters. Now ask me what we are doing with the children. And we go to so many places and they say, these children, this one has to be like this, they are still ripe now, but is it rape or is it friendship? As long as the person is under 18, the person cannot consent to sexual activity. Every human being, male, female, or in between, that, still comes up with asking those kind of questions.
Unfortunately, women ask those questions.
Oh, a lot.
More than men.
I don't care the ratio. I just know that everything is wrong. You're either right or wrong.
Dorothy, what, apart from legal solution or finding legal, what other kind of support do you give to the victim?
Oh, beautiful. I'm happy to tell you. Let's look at a 2-year-old. My very common analogy. Let's look at a 2-year-old who is, let's call it sexually violated, right? First of all, the person needs to report to police or needs medicals, but let's start with medical. So if this 2-year-old is raped, for instance, the 2-year-old has to pay for the medicals of the 2-year-old because a baseline assessment needs to be conducted, and also needs to pay for the rapist or rapist. If it's 3 people, you pay for the medicals of the 3 rapists.
Yes. The test to be carried out.
A baseline assessment needs to be carried out. So if the rapists are hepatitis or HIV positive, and later on there are other manifestations that come up, those are corroborations. Those are part of medical corroborations, right? But the 2-year-old, how much do 2-year-olds earn in Nigeria again? Just keep that in mind. So you pay for those ones. And then you go to the police station. Some police stations will request for inquiry fee before they even listen to you. Some will now tell you that, okay, you have finished inquiry, you need to buy file. Then when you finish buying file, you will pay for police officer to go to the hospital, and then you will pay for the person to come back. Then you pay for police to go to the crime scene, and then as many times as they need to go to the crime scene, you're paying. For each document that they need to do, police to police document, you will pay. The 2-year-old child, though, usually average of say 2,000, 3,000 naira, thereabouts. Crime scene 5,000. Going to invite the suspect 5,000 thereabouts, depending on where. And yes, and then you now go to, it's minuted to legal, maybe because of talkatives like us on standby shouting every day, and the matter goes to court. The court says, okay, we remand this person in prison custody. The prisoner correctional facility people are on ground though, but you pay an average of 5,000 naira to them to carry the accused to the prison, and then you now need to give some kind of mobilization for them to be bringing the person anytime he needs to be brought to court. These are the things that I asked for from the 2-year-old. Remember how much the 2-year-old earns, right? Now think about the fate of other people who are not 2 years old. That's the reality. That's the grim reality that we face. And let's not also forget that in so many situations, when the 2-year-old is raped and she goes to the police station, they say, where's the parent? We are going to charge you for negligence. They came to report that their child was violated, and you are scaring them away. We have so many of these things. I'm happy to come on with different kinds of cases to show different patterns and trends that people need to guard against, peculiar to the different cases. And if we can fix, you see, the best form of education many people would ever have is exposure to Total Woman Show. That's the best education they would ever have, because it brings them real time, it brings them real time, it's like a crash course of some sort. So thank you for this work you're doing. This is a huge ministry. But it's important for the message not to be lost. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. Our shared humanity is the target. And if we don't see women and girls as human beings, it accounts for why, when it's time for politics, we have exclusion. When it's time for different very important things in society, we have a lot of exclusion. When it's time for political appointments, you will see men everywhere. See, during the COVID-19 situation, we didn't have anything. I'll point out only what happened for palliatives. When palliatives were brought, when it was decided, palliatives need to be given, rice and beans, things that the men need were the things that were considered. Women and girls were still menstruating. Sanitary pads did not make it there. A lot of the domestic violence cases we recorded during COVID-19 were as a result of the fact that the men were idle, and so they felt, oh, I don't pay for you, or you are my girlfriend, and so sex is the next thing to do.
And there were cases of, for you to get pad, have sex.
Oh yes, I'll get to those ones. Unsafe sex, a lot of women resisted. Remember, the bargaining power of a lot of women for sexual activity is not promoted. So a woman cannot tell you, I want this one, I don't want this one. They say, no, whatever the man wants, you are the woman, give it to him. And then we have men who say they prohibit their wives from taking contraceptives, but they do not pay school fees for the children that come as a result of those. Now, when the women said, I don't want to have sex because our option of sex is not safe, another child will come in, the men beat them. And when they went to police station, police say, our work is not to separate husband and wife. Husband and wife is a religious thing.
And then there's a biblical passage that will support you not denying your husband.
The police is duty bound to bring to book people who break laws. If spousal battery is a crime known to law with defined penalty, the police is not a religious police something. The police should actually bring to book the people that break laws.
Dorothy, thank you. Let's look at counseling and any form of therapeutic provision for these women that we have their cases, or young girls that we have their cases on ground now. What provision do you have for them? Or what, in fact, I'm tired of asking, what does government have in place? So what do you have in place, and what kind of support do you think you would?
For me, professional therapy is very important. Professional. So for those people who keep on blackmailing victims of sexual and gender-based violence to keep quiet, it is wrong, completely wrong. You are going against the law, and you are disappointing God, because you are hurting somebody more by forcing the person to keep quiet. And before you know it, we have a lot of pent-up anger, metamorphosing into things that are really very scary, and we need to stop it. There are a lot of options for professional therapy everywhere. We need to leverage on, having this. Dorothy Njemaze Foundation, for instance, COVID-19 helped us to do something, expand access to giving therapy, using virtual platforms.
Okay.
Yes, and so that's something. And there are other organizations that we work alongside, There are so many organizations, and we're happy to do a lot of referrals when the need arises, And so through the website, for instance, we get a lot of things reported, and the website is a safe space as well. And we're happy to do referrals, a lot of confidentiality, and
so those provisions are there.
Oh yes,
and people can easily come in.
It's just for people to speak.
What website should they go to?
Oh, www.dnf.org.ng.
Okay.
Yes, that's the website.
So once they do that,
tell us what you need. Tell us your location.
What's your relationship with NAPTIP?
Oh, the relationship with NAPTIP is awesome.
The Nigerian Human
The
Rights
National Human Rights Commission is awesome. Everything possible, we report in writing. And when the officers, everybody in NAPTIP is not Julie Donnelly. I tell people that. Everybody in NAPTIP is not Magnus. I tell people that. But so if there's something that happens, which is a possibility, I always give room for human error, and it needs to be escalated or treated professionally, we're not scared to amplify it. And the leadership of NAPTIP has been proactive to fix its house when we amplify those things. The National Human Rights Commission, at least on the advocacy level as regards what amounts to human rights violations, they have been very awesome. Very recently, the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights, and of course the Minister of Women Affairs, obliged one of our clients, who is a pregnant child, a meeting, and she talked about her concerns about schools expelling children when they get pregnant, because that introduces criminal record to them. Okay. And so I'm hopeful the Minister of Women Affairs promised that she was going to work on something with the Minister of Education to make everybody, so that there will be public declaration that it is not right. When that is done, I'm sure that people like us would latch on to that legal framework to shut down schools that dare expel children.
Thank you so much. I'm tempted to ask how far you've gone with the two young girls that were raped by the landlord.
We keep on talking about it. We are amplifying we've engaged different organizations, and we will keep on amplifying the lapses. We've been doing this for several years, and we will keep on doing it. During the COVID-19 lockdown on 13th of May 2020, we got a court judgment, and that was the rape of a 4-year-old. And it took us 4 years to get that court judgment. So we don't get tired. Luckily, the Dorothy Njemaze Foundation has never lost a case. And so we will continue. We are professional noisemakers. We're happy to make the noise, and we will continue.
And Total Woman is ready to make that noise with you. 84 TV Radio is there to make the noise with you. Until justice is done, we'll continue to fight this fight. Until women are given their rightful place and treated as human beings, not as commodities, we'll continue to lend our voice against whatever form of abuse that you do against the womanhood. My name is Muti Olori. I'll be with you again next week on another edition, another subject, and another topic that affects women on Total Woman 84 TV Radio. God bless you. I am